me undo my phone.
You guys good?
I'm good.
Good evening. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a regular school board meeting for Thursday, March 21st, 2024 at 6 p.m. Mr. Kroll, can you call roll of members, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Present.
Mrs. Cameron,
Present.
Mr. Orozco,
Present.
Mr. Cole present.
And pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among the United States.
And go ahead onto the approval of agenda.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, there are some items to be removed. The first one is 6B, recognition of student Yasmin Garcia. She is unable to attend due to other obligations tonight, so we'll have her next month. Under action item 8G, the MOU with Western regarding placement of students in the district for field experience. Upon legal review, it needs revisions, so we need that removed from the agenda. And under 8J, again, meeting with district lawyers, the timing for the resolution to allow graduating seniors to purchase laptop is not in alignment with the appropriate process and will be brought back in April. And then lastly, under action item 8M, we are asking to remove policies EEA and EEAE to be approved. We had requested quite a bit we've been requesting feedback on the regulation side of the policies. The policies are okay, but it's the regulation. We have not received any feedback. So Ms. Treviso really feels strongly that she needs to actually make people come together. Let's look at what that discipline plan is going to be so that the rules are right before we approve something. So we'd like to remove that one, those two policies tonight, so she has time to get that done. Any questions? I know that was a mouthful.
It's a lot of X's.
Any other questions, comments on that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion if no questions or comments on that.
Also move approval of the agenda as stated by the superintendent.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Kroll, can you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
On to public comment.
There was no one that signed up.
Okay. On to reports.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, the first report we have is to recognize our state champion female
Ooh.
wrestler. If you would come up, Miss Laura Almanza.
Hey.
So I just have to say something because I don't know if you know this. We see this, every month there's something that gets celebrated at the federal level. And one of this month is the impact of the history of women in on just our history. And so you are the first female wrestler in Deming, and you go down in the history books this month, Women's Appreciation Month, right? To be a female wrestler who won state. So congratulations. So we've been using this theme, growing champions, and you epitomize growing champions. So I just want you to have this on behalf of our board and our district. And we are super proud of you and know that Las Vegas you're going to do great things, right? Las Vegas is where you're going to go next. Okay. So if you want to, the board, I don't know if there's anything you guys want to say, but we're super proud of you. Congratulations. You want to get a picture? Hey, we've got family that wants to get pictures too, of course. Of course. Yeah, you want to do the muscle move? We are super proud of you, your coaches. Thank you for all you do. And we are excited to hear next steps.
And if the board will just stay up there, it'll be easier.
Okay, now you guys want to just stay up here? We have one more. Mary Lou, we want to stay up here. We've got one more.
Oh.
So, Mr. President, sorry, Mr. President, members of the board, we have another recognition, and that is for Miss Darby Harrington, our very own. Come on. Our Mexico Agriculture Teacher of the Year, and has, new teacher, right, of the year. But she, again, epitomizes growing champions because you put so much heart and soul into what you do, and we appreciate you so much. So again, thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Wait, mom wanted to take a picture.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mom.
Yell at us.
It's okay. Mom rules. Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you. That's my favorite thing to do, is to recognize our staff and our kids. You guys are amazing. So just thank you for all you do.
All right. With that, we're on to item D.
Yes, Mr.
Any
President.
dimming?
Any?
President, members of the board. So at the beginning of the year, we knew that pre-K was cut down. The state of New Mexico said that students had to go to school 4.5 days a week instead of just the 4 days. And we were all like, okay, you know. Recently, and I mean, just recently, like 3 weeks ago, I called Miss Lena to ask her, so what does pre-K have to do during all their prep? Because they used to get a full day, and I was like, so what did y'all have to do? And then she started telling me, and I'm going, you have to do what? So I decided to bring her along with me just to give you guys some information for how extensive they have to do. So she does do, they have to do some amazing things, all the stuff that I as a teacher have to do. She has to have class observations twice a year and fill out stuff. She goes to her school site meeting. She goes to IT meetings and data meetings and stuff like that, the same way I do. But then she has extra things. The first thing she has to do that she told me is she has to do a PVC cycle.
Right,
What's it called?
right.
What's it called?
It's called a PVC cycle.
Right.
I don't know what that means,
Oh,
but I do know that it means.
We can ask her in a minute, right?
Right. So it means that she has to set a goal. She has to then record herself teaching. Then she has to upload what she taught, that video recording, and then she has to meet with a coach to discuss that video for 30 minutes, and then create a new goal and write another paper on what she's gonna do the next time. This is done every 2 weeks. I was like, every 2 weeks, that's fun. Okay, and then instead of grades, did you have anything you want to say about that?
No, I was telling her that we do have to fill out, like self-assessments, we do them
Right.
throughout the year, we have to fill out assessments on how our coach is doing as
Sure.
well, we have so. And we do this every 2 weeks all school year.
So a lot
I
of
know.
teachers do this type of stuff, but we are not on a 2 week schedule. We're like on a semester schedule, which is a lot.
Or 9 weeks.
Yeah, or
with the
9 weeks,
data or
something a
whatever.
little bit more,
Yeah.
not every 2 weeks.
Right.
And then she has to do ECOT
Right,
3 times a year, and that has to do with, almost it replaces grades. But when I do grades, it's a quick just enter the kid's grades. She has to do 27 indicators on every single child.
27?
yes.
20,
Yes.
roughly 27 indicator for 20 kids, and it has to be detailed. So it has to say, can they climb the stairs independently? And then
You have to go in and put a
Right.
date for each
Right.
single kid, so if we have 20 kids, we have to go in and do that. 20 times for all 27 indicators. And then once we're done, we have to go into EPOT, put those indicators on the system. Then you gotta go finalize the indicators for each child, and then you gotta go out and make the report.
No, consistently exhibits growth, motor coordination, strength, and age-appropriate range of activities and movements in play and complex games. What that means is not only is she having to enter this as grade, but she's also having to continually document throughout every day, every time they're seeing kids do this stuff. So that's way more data collection than I do.
And then 3 of them, we actually have to write written observation.
Right.
Okay, and then she also is required to do trainings from Focus.
Yes.
So I'm also required to do trainings from Focus, especially this year, and last year they finally implemented bloodborne pathogens and all of those lovely training, which are good training, but she has additional ones that she completes that say things like early childhood observation tool, 5 hours online. There's a lot of them that are due specifically to the pre-K teachers that is their first year of teaching.
Right.
So it says 5 hours, 8 hours, 1 hour, 3.5, 3.5, 18 hours, 3 hours. And that's all their first year that they have to complete those trainings online. And then on top of that,
I want to be clear, though, that that's not a district.
no,
This it's from the early childhood department.
There's not much else you can add.
Yeah, right.
and
I
they're
know.
not,
They're not new,
They are not new. So they have been doing like these 2-week observation things for a long time,
but then they
but they
increase the
used to
calendar.
have
Mhm.
a whole day to take care of it. And then for those of you that are familiar with like social workers and some of our school counselors and stuff, they have to maintain continuing education credits in order to keep their license up to date. Well, pre-K teachers have to do the same thing. So they're required to have so many continuing education credits on top of all of this other stuff. And yes, she said that her EAs also have to do the same thing.
Yes.
So they're having to take extra focus trainings and extra this and extra that. I was like, oh, okay, I'm overwhelmed just thinking about it. She also has to do pre-K meetings because they have pre-K meetings just to deal with specifically what the pre-K is doing. And then she also has school site meetings in addition. So like an average second grade teacher will just go to their school site meetings. And she's got it, you know, and stuff like that. So, was there anything else I'm leaving out?
We're just saying that we do have to we get observed twice a year on class observations as well. So that's a whole other set of observations that we get on top of the PED observations that we have to get.
Oh, so you do the normal ones for ped for
Yeah,
medical
we
and then
do.
2 more also?
Yes.
I thought those were combined.
No, there's the next year one that they come in and they get.
Okay. So, yeah, this one's an extra one on top of the domain ones that are done. And then, of course, I know from my time in pre-K, every time you turn around, they're sanitizing, so she said there's like this checklist of stuff that they have to do. That says sanitizing, so you have to spray the sanitizer, wait on surface, wash hands, blah, blah, and I remember when I substituted in pre-K years ago, I didn't do that for very long. And then, she's also shared that a lot of their materials that they create, because every child is tracked so very individually, that they're having to create a lot of materials for each child. So it's not just, let me give a worksheet to the whole group per se. It's a lot of materials that are made, oh, these 2 kids need this, these 3 kids need that. And so it's a lot of managing of those materials. Do you guys have any questions?
Takes a special person to do what you do.
Sure does.
Definitely.
That's just an education across the district. Don't give up. There's a lot of teachers that are across the district that do a lot of the same and similar stuff. Keep going because we need you guys.
Thank you.
So can I just add something with that? Because I also think it's important because it's stuff that is required from an outside entity. And then they increase while the requirements haven't changed and it's been around for a while. It was the calendar hours that changed. We need you guys to help us advocate. Like when we say we need, hey, check this out, see what's happening. there's a calendar problem. We're having a calendar problem we'll talk about later tonight. We need the advocacy and I know it's hard and it's intimidating, but we need you to go with us and say, hey, I'm ready to go talk to our
Well,
legislators.
I'm actually part of another group
Good.
that is fighting for
Awesome.
pre-K to get our hours back. So-
Good.
And it's the issue throughout New Mexico.
Good.
It's not even just. in-
Well, I'm glad you're doing that because it's important.
And NEA New Mexico is the same way. Our NEA New Mexico vice president is actually a pre-K teacher and she is heavily involved in the ECE.
ECD. ECD.
ECD, that body that
Oversees
oversees
this.
all the
Because this isn't
extra
even
stuff.
PED anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the problem is it's PED.
And.
plus.
Mhm.
I have a question about, the daycare. Is it similar
Yes.
to this?
And so what ends up happening is there needs to be a marrying between NMPED and ECD. And so they have both very different initiatives and very different ideas of what they want. So you're having to maintain all these different guidelines and goals
Mhm.
that sometimes even contradict each other. So you're trying to have to figure out how it goes, but yes, it's very similar. And the training is killing us because we have to find time for the train, but for the center, we've got to be open for our parents.
And you gotta have
So
your
it's trying
babies,
to
right?
Maintain the
I know.
trainings and everything
Yeah,
else, but yes,
it is.
definitely.
Yeah.
It'll reset again come the first of the year, I'm sure.
It does, it's yearly, so by the time we get.
After the election and everything else, I'm sure we'll reset again, so.
We'll keep advocating though.
Yeah.
And keep
And
speaking
that's
up.
basically what it was, just to give you guys some information. NEA New Mexico, NEA Deming is doing well. We're planning another spring event. Membership's doing well. We're starting bargaining next week. We are hoping to just knock it out and get it done within like just a couple weeks and just be done, so yay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Congratulations.
On to-
So the next report item was item E, the report on the parent advisory committees in the district. That was at the request of Ms. Crumley, who isn't here. And so what I'll just say is that I sent you all a matrix. I asked every school, they're working to align. They're like Red Mountain, for example, is a community school. So they're working to align any pieces that don't fit the law of the advisory council to align with the community school process that they're already doing and the advisory group they have there. So every school is actually working to lift this up and tighten it, but everybody had some type of a parent group. It just wasn't necessarily in alignment with what the law was saying, so completely. So they're all working on that. So with that, you can move on to your consent agenda.
Item 7, approval of the consent agenda. Do I
I'll
have
move approval of the consent agenda.
a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, Mr. Cole, can you take roll?
Yes. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes,
Mr. Kroll, yes.
okay. Thank you. To number 8, action items. 8A.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the asking for your consideration and approval for our DHS robotics team to accept a donation of $14,000, woohoo, from the NASA White Sands Test Facility. Were you going to speak
Yes.
to that?
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, Mr. Wertz, who leads our DHS robotics team, has requested for the board to accept this donation as per policy. They use this $14,000 to buy a lot of their equipment, and as we've seen, they're very successful at their competitions. So we do ask for your approval, and Mr. Wertz just walked in, so if you have any questions.
There he is.
I'm gonna put him on the spot right now.
That's what happens when you're a little late, you know.
Give your money to me.
Well, you'll have to explain that to now. Have a question for me?
This is what we get usually every year, correct? This is something that you get every year.
Yeah,
So White Sands Test Facility is our sponsor, which is a branch of NASA, and they give us $20,000. 6,000 just to play the game, and the leftover part is the 14,000 so that I can buy the robot supplies and so we can travel and I can feed the kids and all of the above.
Awesome.
And we already went to San Antonio over spring break.
How'd you guys do?
Not very good. We were 37th out of 41. I fixed the robot 12 times after every match. So it was rough. But we're in the middle of I just came from practice. So we're in the middle of rebuilding our drivetrain that will actually work this time and hopefully will be better when we go to Amarillo.
When is that trip? We've already approved.
Over Easter.
Over Easter.
So a week from today,
Okay.
we leave and have to be there in Amarillo by 5 o'clock and then we have to get inspected and start Friday morning, our competition.
We have awesome people.
Any other questions?
Is there any questions from the board?
No, just keep working. We know it's important.
Thank you for what you do.
Mhm.
Appreciate you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Which one is it?
Action item 8A.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, a second.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Mr. Cole, can you take roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
All right, on to item B.
Mr. President, members of the board, we have our ProStart people here and we are asking for your approval, consideration and approval of their out-of-state travel to Florida. So I'll let Miss Jen speak to that. She has her students.
Mr. President, Superintendent, members of the board, I'm gonna introduce my kids first, because I've never seen, well, you've seen them, but.
I've seen them. That was me.
This is our captain, Isaiah Mercado.
Hi.
Josh. What's your last name? Hello. We're missing two, Morgan Gentry and Olivia Pinto. She's at work, and Morgan messed up her leg today, so she's not here. We're asking for permission to go to Florida to cook around the world. This year, the chef is Jet Tila, so I'm so excited. Last year, we had a blast. The kids learned so much. If you need any information, you can ask Aiden right here. We can give you a little rundown. They have been working like little dogs to make money. We've had food truck and community food truck and caterings and
They had a Disney event at across from Walmart. That was really cool.
yeah, that was kind
That
of
was
cool.
fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was
Yeah, we
fun.
did that little community thing there and they really supported us. They gave us all the entry
Awesome.
fees and all that. It was great.
It was great.
Thanks for coming out.
Yes.
So they've been working really hard and it's a really, really neat trip. And I tell you, not everybody gets to go to this and it's because we've been to national several times, for ProStart. We once stayed a couple times and then you go to nationals. There's lots of representatives there from the cooking schools from all over the place, you know, even international schools are there and they talk to us as teachers. They're like, what are your goals? What do you want to do different besides, you know, these kinds of competitions when you start talking? Well, not everybody gets to go. You have to be invited to this. And we've been invited 2 times. Well, we were invited right before the pandemic and then, you know, we all know what happened. But anyway, so we've been invited twice, which is a real honor. I mean, it's a real honor. These kids get to meet some really high level people. And it's really kind of cool. If you want Aiden to talk about what they do, it's really a cool little trip.
I think it's nice. They take you around the parks, throughout all the parks, show you how everything works and how it's just not just a place of friendship and fun. More of there's a bigger hospitality and culinary aspect of it. There's this one tour, it's called Behind the Scenes, I believe. And it's stationed in Epcot and they take you behind behind the scenes tour of the whole greenhouse and the fishery, there's a fishery there,
It's
right?
in a,
They grow their
Yeah,
own,
it's like
right.
they grow their own food, so it's very self-sustaining
Very
just in
cool.
Epcot. So all the food that you'll buy or purchase at Epcot is from that Epcot, yeah. So it's pretty interesting. I think it's a life-changing experience, you know, it helps like a lot of them wanna go to either culinary school, baking school, or hospitality. And for me, it's like, yeah, that's like the place I don't wanna go to check it out, like convince myself to wanna go there. So I think it's like a life-changing experience.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah, super cool trip. But, we just need your permission to go because we've already paid all the bills.
You know, have a spring.
They were better.
Well, since you gave us three, do we,
Would be honored.
do I,
Have any
do you want me to move?
Yes, please.
I would move that, consideration, for approval of out-of-state travel for the DHS Pro Start trip to Orlando, Florida, including Mrs. Cameron, April the 25th through the 29th, 2024.
Strike that.
Well, we'll have to take my name off, so let's.
Second,
I'll second that.
motion and a second. Mr. Kroll, can you take the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Your first, yes, thank you.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes,
Mr. Crowe, yes.
That you guys are on your way?
Thank you.
thank you, congratulations. You know, I
Yeah.
forgot something we should have added on, and then they'll come back and prepare
Yes,
for
we'll work on that.
yeah.
Okay, so,
MC.
yes, Mr. President, members of the board, we also have some other great champions going on to competition, and that is, we're asking you to consider and approve out-of-state travel for our Red Mountain Middle School and DHS archery teams. Yay,
back to back.
congratulations. We have Mr. Fernandez and Mrs. Stark.
Back-to-back state champions, right?
Right.
Mr. President, Superintendent, members of the board, here we are again, you know, we were there last year. So our kids, they're just, they're nonstop, even the high school team, first year for high school, but, you know, we went to state and, twice. So this year's a little different than last year. Last year we competed in bullseye only, which is just the round targets. This year, New Mexico started 3D as well. So we competed at 3D as well. And the middle school went up there and we took first place in 3D and bullseye.
Wow.
2 times the champ. The kids, they're on fire. I have to brag about our team because we went up to 3D and, we actually outscored the high school division. So we beat the high school division by 7 points.
Wow.
Yeah, and bullseye, we came 10 points short from beating the high school division in bullseye. So, I mean, our kids are they're on fire and
Awesome.
they've really been working really hard. I mean, this trip to Utah it'd be really nice if we can make the trip up there and, compete in both 3D and bullseye, not just bullseye.
Right.
And, I know that the high school, boy, they came alive as well, because it's a new.
It's new this year,
Program
right?
for high school.
Brand new.
We have 11 students, 8 of them are from Mexico, and 8 of them have never been in any other program. except this one.
Awesome. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that is neat.
And high school, took second.
We're second in the
in,
states.
in 3D. And I tell you, they beat out some teams that have been shooting archery for 5 or 6 years. So it was great. It was good. It was good to have the high school there as well. But yeah,
It's been a really good program. I've seen it and I've seen it attract a different type of student.
Right.
Some of the students that are in there aren't in sports, which isn't a bad thing, but it's attracted a different group and so it's piqued their interest and I've seen your numbers grow, so it's been good.
Yes.
We also brought one of our top shooters.
Yay, of course.
Represented in public schools at World.
Yeah.
Wow, at World?
Last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where do you go for world competition?
So last year, I'm sorry, last year. Please.
I'm sorry, I didn't go through you, Bobby. I apologize.
It wasn't in San Utah, that's national, but it was in South Carolina, and then this year it's being held in Florida, Daytona Beach.
And it does require you to qualify at nationals though, right?
Score
That's
275
okay.
at nationals to qualify, and that can be at either
You're gonna-
Western National or Eastern.
I know they'll do it again.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Keep practicing.
Any questions?
Any questions? No?
No, it's just great to see our students
Isn't it?
do so well and compete against other schools that are much larger. Okay.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion for approval of out-of-state travel for Red Mountain Middle School and DHS archery team trip to Sandy, Utah, April 25th and 29th, 2024.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Mr. Kroll, please roll.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck. You're gonna do well, I know.
We're not gonna have any kids in school. They're all gonna be all over the United States.
That's all right.
That's
all
good.
right.
On to D.
Mr. President, members of the board, now we're on to the less fun things, but we still are important things so that we can do the work that needs to happen. We have several budget requests. Mr. Chavez is here because all but two relate to programs he supports. So Mr. Chavez, if you just want to give a quick overview of what has happened. I know we've got some decreases and some increases and some transfers.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Chavez. Yes, as you can see, there's all but two. I can maybe speak to a couple. I can probably speak about the other two as well, if needs be. Of course, there's a few decreased bars that came in from PDD. So we had to find it in each budget to decrease in some cases, large amounts of money. And I think I was doing a very good job of spending money, because that's kind of my job, right? And so by the time we got the decrease bar, we had one of our grants that we had to find another fiscal source to replenish what we had already spent. And so.
Or the decreases attributed to?
That's something that we're going to, it's just a final allocation that the state they give us a planning allocation at the beginning of the year. And then a final allocation, well, this allocation came out to be 124,000 less
Oh,
in Title IV. So, and we only had like approximately 80,000 that was uncompleted. So we had to make some magic happen, and through the help of Mrs. Doyle and Mrs. Chavez here, we were able to fix it and get things paid back to them. So we paid our bills. Also, Title I had a small decrease. Parkington Next Gen had a couple little decreases as well. Then on the flip side, we see our ARC2 that got a little bit of money that came in for our homeless population, and our immigrant grant got a little increase as well, including our migrant grant that got a $200,000 increase. So it's just hit and miss. But we have, if we get an increase, we only have until June. Until the end of June to encumber this money and use it correctly. So we got the money, we stuck it in one place. Next month, I'll be coming back with exactly what the plan as to where we're gonna stick it and sell and make sure we use the money before and use that money out for our kids.
Do you have any questions related to the bars? The decreases, the increases, the transfers, they're pretty standard.
No.
Okay, that,
Thank you.
entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I move approval of the budget adjustment request.
Have a second.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Mr. Kroll, can you take roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yeah.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Okay, thank you. With that, we're on to,
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, we have a very important program in our district that we want to reinforce and bring back. And so the foster grant, we are asking for your consideration and approval of our agreement for the foster grandparent program. And Miss Julie Bolton is here. She has provided a little handout. If you just want to give a brief overview and remind us of how it works. It was one of my favorite programs in my school when I was a principal.
Mr. President, members of the board, again, my name is Julie Wilson. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight. Good news is I'm not here to ask for any money. I'm here to offer a helping hand. The foster grandparent program is actually celebrating 30 years of service. We have been providing this service since 1994 when the program was naturally created. Our foster grandparents are seniors who are 55 years or older. And we place them in the schools and classrooms that says teachers. We have each foster grandparent work with 1 to 2 students each year. And we provide supportive services that help improve their language, math skills, and social skills. We currently have 5 foster grandparents placed in the Columbus Elementary School. We have 2 at Ruben Torres, 1 at Bell Elementary. Of the 9 foster grandparents, only 6 are currently active to our medical leave. We are actively recruiting, so if you know of any seniors that may be interested, this also benefits them where it helps them remain active and engaged in their community.
I'm eligible.
I'm really eligible.
How did this come about? How was this created?
This is a program that was created by the National Service of the Corporation of National Services, now known as AmeriCorps Seniors. And we receive federal funding and state funding. The majority of funding that we receive is from Aging and Long-Term Services. There is a shift to where we hopefully within the next couple of years, we will be able to get more federal funding. That's already occurred in some of our other volunteer programs. And before I finish, I'd like to ask, make a special request. Of our foster grandparents, 6 were nominated to receive the Presidential Lifetime Service Awards, and all 6 are receiving the award.
Oh, wow.
So we would like to present them their certificates and a medallion in the next board meeting.
That'd be awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yes.
And to get this award, they have to have done at least 4,000 hours of service since they started volunteering. And we have 1 volunteer that's been with us 15 years and has done over 9,000 hours.
Wow.
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 Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
I started actually at foster grandparents. I worked at the senior center for 5 years and I did the foster grandparent program there. And so I guess that's what got me interested in social work in the first place, but it's a great program.
It is.
Yeah, it's not only good for the child, but it's also good for the senior.
Yes.
So there's very few programs that have benefits on both sides, and FGP is one. And then also they receive a stipend for their work. So
Yes, they get paid $4 an hour, and that is tax-free money. And it doesn't affect any benefits like food
Medicaid
stamps, social
anything.
security. So it's.
And it's really based for seniors who are having difficulty financially. So it's for the lower income seniors.
Sure.
And it's awesome. And the recognitions too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but because since COVID occurred, we lost a lot of volunteers and we're having trouble recruiting. This is happening nationwide, and they're gonna raise the income limits to encourage more seniors to join the program.
That's
That's
neat.
good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yes. thank you.
Appreciate that.
You didn't have any questions on the actual memorandum of understanding?
Any questions on that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
They make us read all this beforehand.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move the approval of the memorandum of understanding between the foster grandparent program sponsored by Deming Luna County Commission on Aging Incorporated and Deming Public Schools.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Cole, can you take roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
On to F.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Aul is here to discuss the LGRF school bus lane intersection improvement project that we are going to request your approval for.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. So what you have before you is, the district's letter of intent for the LGRF. Basically, we are requesting board approval to apply for the LGRF. The, scope of work in a nutshell is to address some work over at Pear and, Hermanas Creek, at the bus lane coming into Red Mountain and Baton. The other scope of work is coming into DIS or coming out, the bus lane coming in and out. We're looking to widen that area. But right now, the only thing that we're looking for board approval is to request your board approval to apply for the local government road fund. And I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
How much did you say you're asking for?
So right now, we're not asking for any money. We're just asking for your approval to apply for the
Oh, okay.
local government. road
So,
fund.
Mr. Aul, Mr. President, madams of, members of the board, we're actually estimating the project in the letter at 290,000. If we receive this, then we will have to match 25% of that, which is right around 73,000, and the state will pay 217,000.
Mm.
So, that's what we estimate. It could change but that is what we have to put in the application.
How is this project? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the work includes some permanent work that needs to happen coming into that bus lane because of the rains and some of the traffic that comes in and out of that. It degrades that asphalt. So we're looking to do something a little more permanent. That means coming in and cutting that asphalt out and putting concrete and creating a more stable piece of work for that.
Yeah, and it's
for
the
those buses.
turning, right,
It's
Mr.
the
Aul, it's
turning.
where they're turning in that's breaking down.
How was this location selected? Were there other locations that we looked at as well, or was it just this one?
So, Mr. President, so this has been on our radar for a few years now. And I think it was time for us to bring that up to the top of the priority list. So, it's just been a couple of years that we've been thinking about this project, so.
Can I ask a question? So on the budget, I was noticing that there's a little section that says traffic control. What specifically does that mean?
So, Mr. President, Mrs. Paez, there's a utility pole that we're looking to put some markers to protect that. But there's also some widening that needs to occur to protect not just the pole, but to make it easier for the traffic flow coming in and out from Pear onto Hermanas.
So it's barrier type things, is that what that directs the
I don't know
traffic?
if you have that on your
Is that-
packet.
Yeah, it was in the budget.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
I
so
think
those
it's on,
things?
yes,
Oh, okay.
I think so.
They're actually, I was out there with the contractor today, and there's some work that they're gonna flatten out and make it a little bit wider just to create that easier flow of traffic.
This says 89 buses it supports. Is that an accurate number?
I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but
That's a little high.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're closer to like 72.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments, concerns? Okay, none, I'll entertain a motion.
Yep,
Thank you.
right,
Thank you, Mr.
number F.
Thank you.
Yes, and yeah.
Yes.
I would move consideration and approval of the local government road fund program, LGRF, school bus lane intersection improvements project.
Second,
I'll second that.
motion and a second, Mr. Kroll, please, please.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez?
Yeah.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes,
Mr. Crowe, yes.
All right. And with that, we're on to H.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, we have Mr. Glickler here to talk about the consideration and approval of RFP 2404 for the network refresh at Memorial School, Elementary School.
President Roscoe, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, you have in front of you an RFP for consideration. The intention here is that Memorial School has some old network electronics. They fell out of life support in 2020 roughly, so right at the beginning of when we went to quarantine. We're in the process of going through these schools and identifying the ones that are in the greatest need and replacing them. Because of the E-rate process, this is an E-rate application, by the way, there are some kind of arcane rules that I could talk you through if you like to explain why this was an RFP, but it didn't have to be because it is a vendor that had a state contract. However, it was the only vendor that applied, and it was also a vendor that we evaluated and selected. Memorial needs all their network electronics replaced. There are ultimately 4 stacks in that location that we're replacing, and the total cost of the project is right around $74,000. Of that $74,000, about 85% of it is going to be paid for via E-rate. An additional 5% of it will be paid for by the state government. With that, I stand for any questions.
Questions? Comments?
Needs to be done. That's my comment.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Mr. Kroll, can you take roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes,
Mr. Kroll, yes.
thank you. Number 2, I.
Yes, and with that, Mr. Glickler will continue because it's the same type of project, but for Bataan Elementary School.
Yes, President Orozco, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, everything that I just said applies to Bataan. The only difference is 84 instead of 74. There are 2 extra switches that we're getting and installing. Other than that, it's an identical situation, 1 vendor, and we'd like to go out them. And with that, I stand for any questions.
No, I'll move aye, right?
Yes, ma'am. Aye.
I would move consideration and approve, Mr. Chair, consideration and approval, RFP number 24-05 Bataan Elementary Network Refresh.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Kroll, could you take roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you. That on to K.
Yes, and our next item is, every year we have to submit a resolution for part-time employees to participate in NIPSIA. In benefits, so that they can participate in benefit coverage, and Mr. Turner has some additional
Thank you, guys.
information. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, as the superintendent mentioned, this is an annual resolution that allows our part-time employees to participate in our insurance plans. There are some that do participate in it, and so we do recommend approval. Do you have any questions?
So it's permit, they don't have to do
They
it.
don't have to.
Just-
Right.
They can opt in.
No.
Any questions, comments? Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the district part-time employee resolution relating to requesting authorization from NMPSIA to permit part-time employees to participate in benefits coverage.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Mr. Kroll, can you take roll?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And with that, we're on to item L, consideration and approval of performance framework for Deming Cesar Chavez Charter High School. So in your board packet, so I want to back up just a little bit. This is part of the process. The regulatory requirement is that we have a performance framework. This is still not the contract yet. Once we get a framework in place, then we sit down and we negotiate with the charter. So you have the option to not approve this tonight and wait, just give us feedback on it if you have any questions, any comments, and it can be approved with the whole contract in May. Or you can approve it tonight if you want to approve it, and it will just become part of the contract in May anyways. So it's your opportunity to ask questions, give feedback. And I do have Shelley Sharon on. I've been working with her and the attorney to ensure that it follows the legal requirements that should be in place in terms of how we monitor the charter school. It's very similar to what the Public Education Commission, who oversees all the state authorized schools. It's similar to that, but it's not exactly like that. We adapted it for Deming Public Schools and Deming Cesar Chavez. So with that, I'll let you all decide if you want to approve it, but right now we can open it up for discussion and questions related to it and any feedback that you might have.
I think it'd probably be a cleaner process to just wait till we have the whole package and approve the whole package together instead of trying to approve pieces.
I agree.
Has the charter school looked at it over already? Are they?
We've been working with them as well. Once we kind of got your feedback, we were going to schedule basically a half-day meeting with them to sit down, go through the pieces. What does this look like? How would we measure this? What are the components? And that's where we start to develop the contract as well.
I think when I looked through it, my biggest question was like, whose responsibility is it to monitor the school's performance?
Us.
That's us.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then it's also our responsibility to make sure that they're compliant. So
Yeah.
there's no outside person that's looking at.
So
all
we
of this?
can hire somebody to do that. If we want to hire someone, I mean, those are things I might come to you after we get through this part. I might say, you know, for a couple hours a month, maybe we do want to hire someone to monitor it, because I do think, and I think Mr. Nunez, he's on as well and would agree that they didn't have, when this hadn't been as, there wasn't the communication that was ongoing in the prior contract. And we want to make sure we set this up for success. And that everybody stays on the same page. So I may come back when we talk about it and finalize it and say, yeah, we are going to hire someone just to do, contract with someone just to do the monitoring. And then we would do the annual site visits with that person.
Yeah, 'cause it does look very.
It is.
Tasking oriented,
is.
and there's a lot of work
It
that goes
is.
into that, so,
It is.
yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Mr. Nunez, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. Yeah, we agree with what Ms. Chavez is saying. In the past, there really wasn't any oversight done by the district, and I think for the most part, I think there was really because we didn't know. You know, I came in during the COVID. I knew that I had to report to you on a quarterly basis, but really the visits from the district were not done. And I think what happened is when you come into this position, it's just fast and furious. And there was really not a time to sit down and talk to Vicky and say, what exactly do we have to do to be in compliance between Deming Public Schools and the Cesar Chavez? Well, with this PEC framework, I think we're up to a better start, to be very honest with you. I think the oversight is better. The communication is very transparent. And we have no objections to this. We want your board and our board to be in constant communication, as well as Ms. Chavez and myself. We're okay. I think we have coming from NASBO, hearing upon those other charter schools I was with on Monday, Albuquerque Public Schools, I don't mean no disrespect to them, but we have a really good relationship. We want to maintain that. So we want to continue. We're very thankful and grateful for Superintendent Chavez and your board that, you see the need for the community. So most definitely, we are on board with what you decide.
And it seems like the framework what I read through, it seems like a lot of the stuff you guys are doing with the presentations and some of the reports that you're giving us. So, I mean, I don't think we're in the ballpark. I think it's just a matter of showing some stuff up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
I think one of the
Thank you.
things that has, excuse me.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, is when the charter school started, the district didn't fight it. We tried to work with it. And I think that, was not happening in so many of the other charter schools, that, around the state. And they were at each other rather than trying to work together. So I think, we should be, very pleased that, the charter school and Deming Public Schools, under Deming Public Schools as well, has done a great
It's a good
job
way
of
to think
communication.
Okay, so with that, and if the consensus, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're gonna go ahead and table that until we make it a complete package.
Mhm.
And then we'll come back and vote on it. Okay,
So then we need a motion.
I'll need a motion to table that.
I'll move to table until our next meeting. Do I need to add anything else? Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion in a second. Mr. Cole, can you take roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everyone being on, ready to talk about it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And on to item M.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, our next, consideration and approval for the policies that are listed, minus the two that we want to work on the regulations. We are using our work session as the first read, correct? I just want to make sure that I'm explaining the process right. So this is the opportunity for us to approve them at this time. This would be the second read. If there was nothing from the first read, we didn't get feedback on those two, which is why we pulled them and feel like we need to make sure we get feedback. The other ones, we felt comfortable, they were ready to be adopted. So, with that, we'll stand for any questions. If there's anything you feel like we need to revisit or hold on, we're happy to listen to that, but we would recommend approval of those, 4 policies listed on the agenda.
Questions, comments, concerns?
So I wouldn't have had to read the other two today.
Sorry, we were hoping we'd get feedback.
teasing.
That was, and it was pulling teeth.
Yeah.
To get feedback. So we want it to be right and yeah.
Mhm.
No questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move for removal of policies. Is that-
No,
No, we're
consideration.
you're approving.
I'm sorry. I'm so-
EEAD, yeah.
I move for approval of EEAA, EEAB, JFAB, and JFB.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Motion in a second. Mr. Cole, can you take roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yeah.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
And on with that, we're to.
And on that, we're to
superintendent's reports.
superintendent's reports. And so, we wanted you to have the next section of policies that we're going to be, reviewing at the work session and then doing the second read at the next official board meeting. So this is your opportunity to take those 3 sections, A, B, and C, and give us feedback. And at the work session, if you have anything else you want to add to that, that will be the time for us to do that. But this is basically the process we'll be using to keep moving forward with the adoption of the NMSBA policy handbook.
Okay.
Okay, any questions or comments that you have on those yet? Okay. So then, Mr. President, members of the board, item B is, let me just I just want to give you an update on where we're at with calendar because we are late and Ms. Pavron is here if we have questions, but I want to give you a little bit of history of what's been happening. As you know, the Public Education Department has been dragging their feet on the rule and then finally said, we're going to move forward with it. We're just going to move forward with it. And but it's still not fully published. We've just been given those memos that I've sent out to the staff. I also sent them out to you all so that you would know where the public education department is at, but we don't have a final rule yet.
Oh.
It is supposed to come out on Tuesday. So what we did is we just took a look at what we did this year, what we think we know about the calendar and the requirements related to the law says 1,140 hours. The rule is now requiring 180 days minimum, but allows the two parent-teacher days, but the law doesn't. And so there's just a lot of conflict as far as what's happening at the state at this time, and it's still not clear. The Superintendent's Association is planning to drop a lawsuit to put a stay on this. We've heard that NEA, I don't know the other one.
New Mexico, AFT.
AFT, that they are thinking about it, but they go through a different process to make that decision. And I also heard from Mr. Nunez, I don't know if he's still on, but that the Charter Coalition is also making that consideration. The one that's not is the School Board Association, which is really interesting to me since all of the school boards spoke. I mean, there was a lot of conversation from school board members across the state. I don't know if they plan to join or not, but if you guys have any pull with them, maybe you want to talk to Mr. Guillen and see if they want to be part of this.
Well, next week we have a meeting.
That's true.
And
It could be
maybe that
something
will
we could
be-
Bring it up.
I'll talk to, I'm supposed to chair that meeting.
You'll influence that.
So
You'll share some information.
I'll talk to him ahead of time, maybe about.
So these are just two calendars based on what we did this year. Basically 180 days, not counting the 2 parent days and continuing with the 11 in-service days. But again, we don't have it. Really, the only 2 options with this is that we either start the 22nd of July and end the 30th of May, or we start the 29th of July and we end the 6th of June. And I know neither one is the ideal, but because people don't like to come back after Memorial Day, and it makes it hard for graduation and seniors, and we know that there's a lot of issues related to closing out and all of that. But right now, these are the 2 calendars we are going to propose for the community to give us input on and to give us feedback on, and vote. Basically, we'll have them vote so that you all can make a decision next month as to which one we adopt. But we did want any feedback you guys have, like if there's a different way you want to go, we're happy to do that. The one huge question mark about this for me, of course, is budget. We don't have a unit value yet. They haven't published it. I don't know if we can afford 11 days of professional development. I don't know yet until we get our unit value. Insurance has gone up. Health insurance is going up 15.46%.
Wow.
Dental is going up 5% and vision is going up 3%. The risk insurance for districts is going up 31%. And we're being told we are going to no longer be allowed, and I'll give you more information once I have it, but we're no longer going to be allowed to offer insurance just for our athletes, accident insurance for our athletes. We are going to have to offer it to everyone across the district, but we have to pay for it. And it'll be about $3.65 a student. It's good. There's a lot of great things about it because if they're injured at school, they fall at the playground, they're on work study, they're doing an internship, they get hurt. It covers them for those kinds of things. So it has a lot of potential benefit, but it's another cost.
Mhm.
It's going to be about $20,000 for us to insure all of our kids. And so like there's all these other side costs. I just don't know that we're going to be able to afford all this.
Mhm.
That's my biggest worry right now. So we just wanted to bring to you what we were thinking, kind of the boundaries we have, and get feedback. Is there anything else, Ms. Pedroni, you'd like to add?
Mr. President, the board superintendent Chavez, I think the only difference is that, we did change fall break.
Oh, that's right.
The fair committee did come to us and asked us if we could move it a week later because, because we're out that week and families leave, there's not a lot of participation for the fair. So when we met with the committee, we asked that if we do this, that there be activities for the kids, during the day, so that kids could take field trips and have activities with FFA, do things and.
Oh, that's great idea.
For the students, so they said yes, that they would provide those activities for our kids, so they could have field trips, but, so we moved it 1 week later, fall break. And in the second option, because we had to move, the starting date started a little bit later, in order for the quarters to all be the same, spring break is just 1 week. The next week is spring break. Later than it was before. That's the only difference.
That works.
There's only so many days.
This calendar to start.
Right.
And we don't.
Well, and we have to have it for our budget too, and yeah, it's been frustrating.
Thank you.
If you do have any feedback, just
Yeah.
let us know, because we're gonna be meeting next week we have a community meeting.
So on Tuesday, we have parent community input, and then on Thursday, I meet again with the staff.
Okay,
And then we're gonna have a survey. I'll meet with you tomorrow. It's
Okay.
ready to go, so that you can tell me to go and.
Okay. sounds good.
Can we attend and just sit and listen?
Absolutely.
And when is it? Which-
It just went out today.
It's on Tuesday here at 5 o'clock.
Yes, Tuesday here at 5.
Here in this,
Yeah.
okay.
We're gonna be up there.
We're gonna be in.
We're gonna be in Coburg.
We're gonna be.
We have a.
Oh, that's
We have
right.
a school board meeting. Yeah,
That's right.
We'll begin.
okay.
Yeah.
Go team.
Good idea.
Okay, with that, the rest is yours.
All right, so any board member requests for agenda items? If none, there will be a board work session, April 11th, 2024 at 5:30 at the Emmett Shockley Administration Building in Deming. The purpose of the work session is for board to discuss policies from New Mexico School Boards Association that the district will be adopting for the upcoming school year. The next regular meeting of the board will be April 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. and it will also be at the Emmett Shockley Administration Building.
So the 11th, 5:30,
Correct.
and the 18th is 6.
Correct.
Okay,
We have the work sessions a little bit earlier, 30 minutes earlier.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn open meeting and move into closed session.
I'll move that we move into adjourn our meeting and move into closed session. And there'll be no action afterwards.
Can we read the?
Did I get that right?
Yeah, read the.
Oh, where is
Yeah,
it?
Right here on the last page.
I'm sorry, I was trying. Okay. I move that we adjourn our open meeting and move into closed session for discussion of limited personnel matters including but not limited to the evaluation of the superintendent as permitted by section 10-15-1H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, and discussion of threatened or pending litigation as permitted by section 10-15-1H7 of the New Mexico Open Meeting Act.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, Mr. Cole, please take roll.
Yes. Mrs. Paez?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Cole, yes.
With that.